Welcome everyone to Indonesia Pavilion. Let's kick off our next session. It's in relation to unlocking the potential of carbon economic value. So carbon economic value is designed to mobilize climate finance both domestic and globally to support green investment in accelerating the climate action to achieve FOLU Net Sink 2030. Before we start with the discussion, allow me to welcome our keynote speaker. She's the senior advisor to the Minister on Climate Change. She's also the executive chair of OMO IFNS 2030. Please join me in welcoming Professor Haruni.
Distinguished delegates, panelists, and colleagues. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and warm greetings from the Indonesia Pavilion. It is a great honor for me to address you at this important session on unlocking the potential of carbon economic value for climate actions towards Indonesia FOLU Net Sink 2030. Allow me to share how Indonesia forests lie at the heart of our climate ambition and how we are aligning environmental integrity with economic transformation. Indonesia is home to one of the largest tropical forest area on Earth, covering more than 90 million hectares and storing over 30 million tons of carbon. These forests are not just natural assets, they are living climate solutions that sustain biodiversity, livelihoods, and the well-being of millions of people. In our national climate strategy, the forestry and other land use sector play a central role, contributing approximately 60% of Indonesia's total emission reduction potential. This places the forestry sector at the heart of our mitigation pathway and our long-term climate leadership. Guided by the Astacita vision for a golden Indonesia 2045 and aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, we see forests not as constraint to the development, but as engine of sustainable growth, integrating food, energy, and environmental security, and ensuring that prosperity goes hand in hand with ecological resilience. Our national target is clear and ambitious. By 2030, the FOLU sector must become a net sink of carbon, absorbing more greenhouse gases than it emits. This is the essence of FOLU Net Sink 2030, a milestone toward achieving net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. It embodies our belief that protecting and restoring our forests can go hand in hand with economic resilience and community welfare. Our strategy is comprehensive, science-based, and inclusive, implemented through 5 pillars of action. First, sustainable forest management through promoting reduced impact logging, social forestry and climate practices that generate both emission reduction and local prosperity. And then enhancement of forest carbon stock through large-scale forest rehabilitation, restoration, adjustment planting, and the establishment of high productivity forest plantation that contribute to long-term carbon storage. And then forest and biodiversity conservation, maintaining ecological integrity, and preventing emission from degradation or land conversion. And then peatland ecosystem management for rewetting and restoring degraded peatland, improving water management, and preventing peat fire. And then policy instrument and information system strengthening, developing enabling policy, law enforcement, institutional capacity strengthening, and monitoring system to ensure transparency, accountability, and adaptive management across program. Our collective program is encouraging. Over the past decade, Indonesia has reduced its deforestation rate by more than 60% and this is reaching the lowest in over 20 years. This achievement reflects strong political commitments, effective law enforcement, and improved forest governance. We have restored more than 1 million hectares of degraded lands, including peatlands and mangrove, as vital carbon sink and natural buffers against climate risk. Almost all provinces, we have developed subnational FOLU Net Sink action plan, ensuring the local ownership and alignment with national targets. And then institutional coordination has been strengthened through the operational management office, which ensure synchronized implementation of programs under the FOLU operational plan. We also have strengthened our MRV standard to enhance transparency, data integrity, and credibility. And this achievement demonstrates that FOLU Net Sink 2030 is not just a plan, it is a living framework that delivers measurable outcomes for climate, ecosystem, and people. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, to sustain and scale this progress, Indonesia has established a transformative national framework known as the Carbon Economic Value or carbon pricing, enacted through Presidential Regulation number 110 of 2025, such as released recently. And the carbon economic value provides a national architecture for carbon pricing and climate finance, harmonizing multiple instruments, including result-based payment, which recognize verified emission outcome and reducing greenhouse gas emission or enhancing carbon sequestration. And carbon trading, including mechanism where entity can buy or sell carbon through both compliance and voluntary markets. And carbon levy, which create an economic incentive to reduce emission and disincentive for emitting greenhouse gas. And of course, other instruments which allowing the flexibility to adopt new or emerging approach as knowledge and policy evolve. To operationalize this framework, the Ministry of Forestry is now finalizing the 4th derivative regulation revision to regulate on carbon trading, and then also regulation on forest zoning and utilization, regulation on social forestry implementation, and a new regulation on environmental service utilization within the conservation area. And this will create a solid and institutional foundation for transparent, credible carbon market operation in the forestry sector. Through carbon economic value, every ton of verified emission reduction becomes both a climate responsibility and an economic opportunity, driving a green investment, innovation, and sustainable growth. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia experience show that carbon finance can deliver tangible outcomes when built on integrity and trust. Through our long-standing partnership with Norway, Indonesia has received about 216 million of US dollar in REDD Plus result-based payment, thanks for Norwegian government for verified emission reduction of 43.2 million tons of carbon dioxide during the 2016 to 2020 period. And then previously under the Green Climate Fund with a total around of 103.8 million for verifying emission reduction of 20.3 million tons of carbon dioxide during the period of 2014 to 2016. And under the provincial level in East Kalimantan, under Forest Carbon Partnership Facility Carbon Fund, Indonesia should receive another 110 million payment US dollar for one of the large-scale jurisdiction REDD Plus success story. We also deepening cooperation through recent MOU with ITA and ICVCM, which strengthen our capacity, knowledge exchange, and alignment with global carbon market standard. This initiative demonstrates that well-governed carbon finance can mobilize resources at scale, empower community, and support the broader transformation toward a low-carbon economy. Indonesia is witnessing rapid growth in carbon market participation and advancing readiness for Article 6 implementation, signaling stronger engagement from the private sector and international partners alike. This initiative demonstrates that climate ambition can attract investment and the well-governed carbon finance to serve as a powerful catalyst for sustainable development. We believe that integrity and inclusivity are the foundation of any credible carbon governance system. We have Indonesia have national regulation system to ensure that full transparency by tracking every carbon credit from its generation and verification to transfer and transaction under a single national registry. Our MRV protocol also being updated to align with international standards, safeguard environmental integrity and comparability of results across all carbon programs. Through social forestry and also recognition of customary or other forests, local and indigenous people community will receive fair and equitable benefits for their stewardship. We apply a pentahelix approach, bringing together governments, media, academia, private sector, and civil society to ensure that carbon governance remain participatory, transparent, and equitable. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the FOLU Net Sink 2030 and the carbon economic value framework are not only about reducing emission, they are about they create green jobs through forest restoration, rehabilitation, and also sustainable enterprise that empower local economies. They also open new income opportunity for rural communities through social forestry, ecosystem service, and responsible investment. They also protect biodiversity, safeguard water resource, and strengthen ecosystem resilience to climate impacts. And of course, they enhance Indonesia's contribution to global climate stability, positioning our forests as part of the global climate solution. And this is Indonesia model of green growth with justice, a pathway where environmental integrity uplift both nature and people. Looking ahead, Indonesia is ready to scale up implementation. We are developing a digital carbon economic value platform integrated with the One Map policy, ensuring efficiency, traceability, and real-time transparency. We will expand jurisdictional and result-based approach across province, enhance readiness for Article 6 cooperation, and continue inviting collaboration from government, private sector, and communities alike. Indonesia, we aim to position in forestry sector as regional carbon hub, producing high-integrity carbon credit that contribute to global decarbonization while driving local prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia's journey toward FOLU Net Sink 2030 and carbon economic value implementation is more than a national effort, and it is a message to the world that forests are not obstacle to the development, they are the foundation of sustainable prosperity. By aligning carbon integrity with economic opportunity, we demonstrate that the path to net zero can also be a path to shared growth, justice, and resilience. Let's us move together, let's us work together for forests, for climate, and for our collective future. For closing, let's watch a short video featuring our Minister of Forestry for some insight and message related with our event. Thank you.
Indonesia is home to some of the world's richest forests, our natural heritage and our greatest ally in tackling the climate crisis. From the mangroves of Sumatra to the highlands of Papua, our forests sustain lives, store carbon, and inspire global action. Through the Forestry and Other Land Use Net Sink 2030, Indonesia aims to ensure that by 2030, carbon absorption from our forests exceed emissions. This is not just an environmental goal, it is a vision of balance between prosperity and resilience for our people and the planet. In 2025, Indonesia marks a new milestone with the issuance of Presidential Regulation number 110 on the implementation of carbon economic value instruments, the National Greenhouse Gas Emission Control. This regulation establishes a unified framework to measure, price, and manage carbon, turning environmental stewardship into economic opportunity and policy into real climate action. Through strong governance and collaboration, Indonesia is integrating science, technology, and community participation into climate solutions. The Forest Carbon Economic Value Policy connects national ambition with local action, from forest carbon monitoring to benefit sharing and sustainable livelihoods. Indonesia's journey toward FOLU Net Sink 2030 continues with optimism and determination. By unlocking the potential of carbon economic value, we are transforming our forests into engine of climate action, economic growth, and shared prosperity. Together with nature, for nature, Indonesia leads with integrity, innovation, and collaboration. Indonesia, from rainforest to global carbon hub and marketplace.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Professor Haruni. So based on the presentation as well as the statement made by the minister, we're going to deep dive and look more into the details on the strategy in accelerating FOLU Net Sink 2030 and what's the progress up to date, and how the partnerships with communities, with private companies, with international actors, local government as well be strengthened to scale up the impact, and what lessons can Indonesia share with other countries, developing countries, on integrating carbon governance into national climate targets. So, to start with the discussion, allow me to invite our moderator. He is the principal scientist of C4 Aircraft, Bapak Daniel Mudiarso.
Hello, everyone. I just wondering who is coming from Brazil? Can you raise your hand? Brazilian. Okay, majority of the room is Brazilian. From Europe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, handful. From Africa. Handful. Well, we are a mix of people here. Would like to hear how Indonesia is doing good things in forestry sector or land sector. In the past, I would say 17 years. I remember when Red Plus was born in COP13 in Bali, it was 17 years ago, now COP30. Okay, so things are progressing so well. And during that time, we also collaborate with Norway and other partners. Indonesia has been kind of a melting pot for people to collaborate and see the potential of forests to reduce emission from fossil burning and etc. So I'm privileged to host this session by having 4 prominent speakers that we have today to comment and perhaps also giving us wisdom how to do that in the next 5 years. FOLU Net Sink 2030 is only 5 years away from now. So how can we do that with the current situation and the current setting in terms of financial architecture and also the challenge of involving indigenous people and local communities. So we have a lot to handle, but with kind of collaboration that we have and transpired by the speech of the minister, I believe we can do something better than what we have done in the last 17 years. So without further ado, I would like to invite our speaker, Leif John Fosse. He's been with us since 2008. Take your seat, Leif John. From Norwegian International Climate Forest Initiative. The second speaker will be, the order is like this. Bapak Wahyu Marjana, who is Director for Economic Value of Carbon in the Ministry of Environment. The third speaker will be Leticia Gulmarais from UNDP in Washington, but she is Brazilian, believe me. And last but not least is Mr. Purwadi from the Association of Forest Concessionaires. So we have everybody here. So if you allow me to sit somewhere, maybe following the order there. So I would like to invite you, Liv John, to start with how can Norway start with this thing in the past 17 years until today. We heard about the amount of carbon reduced through the RED Plus mechanism, and what would be the next step to take in order to meet this objective of FOLU Net Sink. Liv John.
Thank you so much, Papa Daniel. And it's a personal pleasure to be here, standing in for my director, Andreas Dahl Jørgensen. Having been part of the initial negotiations for the letter of intent 15 years ago, it's a real pleasure to be back in this circuit and to celebrate Indonesia's fantastic results. So, Indonesia is delivering true leadership here in BLM, as you have done in many other areas in the past few years, through impressive results on social forestry, and most recently committing to recognize 1.4 million of hutan adat forests, or customary forests, sorry. And also by announcing Indonesia's surprise decision to support the Tropical Forest Forever facility. Fantastic news, opening up new opportunities for international collaboration and access to climate finance. Indonesia has also just delivered its second NDC with ambitious targets for the FOLU sector, as we have just seen. And this is excellent news, as deserves proper recognition. So, not least, also recognizing the impressive result you have achieved in reduced deforestation over the last decade, making Indonesia a global leader in this field. So, climate finance, the topic of the day. That's crucial for Indonesia, of course, and for the FOLU sector, your strategy. And it is a priority issue on Norway's agenda. Through Norway's bilateral cooperation, which, as we learned, go back 15 years now, we support India and Indonesia through different channels. The most important, of course, is our partnership on results-based contribution to support Indonesia's FOLU Net Sink 2030 plan, a very ingenious and innovative experiment in climate strategy. So, established in 2022, this partnership supports Indonesia's efforts to reduce deforestation. Results are verified by an independent third party based on a jointly agreed model. Norway has, so far, as we just heard, provided 216 million USD as a result-based contribution to Indonesia. Managed by the Indonesia Environmental Fund with prudence and integrity, supporting efforts under the FOLU Net Sink 2030 framework. So, our partnership, based on this results-based model, gives Indonesia the recognition it does deserve for significant emission reductions from reduced deforestation. It also recognizes Indonesia's own systems for managing contributions and prioritizing support for the FOLU Net Sink 2030 plan. So we are pleased to see other countries exploring this approach to results-based contributions with Indonesia. And we hope lessons from our collaboration with Indonesia can mobilize efforts to have other partners join, and indeed to finance and develop forest carbon markets. So, Norway have supported Indonesia and continues to support Indonesia through results-based payments. But we know Indonesia has great potential beyond this to attract more forest finance through forest carbon markets. We have seen the first few steps from the government including the recent regulation, from the government to open up for RED projects to access these carbon markets. Globally, however, we do see buyers move more toward national or jurisdictional RED. Norway believes Indonesia would benefit from exploring this approach as a way of tapping into new markets and other buyer groups than the RED project markets, whose lifespan anyway is limited to 2030, according to the RED decisions. Now, especially seeing our current partnership is based on national accounting, meaning a key condition for making the most out of the jurisdictional forest carbon market is, or in fact, already in place. So, if deforestation is kept at a low level, using a high integrity standard like the art trees at national level, that could bring verified results to the market, voluntary or with corresponding adjustments, as Indonesia would prefer. The recently published presidential regulation on carbon economic value provides a solid framework for this approach, for optimizing economic benefits from the carbon markets, particularly for the FOLU sector. This could complement already existing RED projects and maximize climate finance we know is needed to further develop Indonesia's efforts in the FOLU sector. And not taking too long, I will stop here. Thank you so much for your attention so far.
Thank you, Lee John. Yeah, I think you touch upon a number of important issues, especially with regard to two regulations in place. One is the technical thing related to MRV, and you relate that with trees, art trees. And the second one is the recent presidential regulation on the economic value. We will follow that up with regard to the pledge of Norway that made 10, 15 years ago, 1 billion, whether or not we are going to achieve that in the next 5 years. But before that, let me invite Leticia to comment on how UNDP in the technical issues can make this process to happen in the next 5 years, having experience with UNRED in the past 5-10 years. Leticia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you to the government of Indonesia for the invitation to be in this important panel. Boa tarde aos brasileiros, and good afternoon to everyone. So my name is Leticia Guimarães. I'm a senior technical advisor, but also leading the carbon markets work for UNDP. And I was looking also through the history of UNRED and the support that has been given to Indonesia to prepare for this panel. UNRED has been created back in 2008 with the contribution from the government of Norway and other governments that later on followed. And the idea of UNRED was to enable forest countries to be ready for a future where results-based payments would come to fruition. And nowadays we see this reality. So it's important to look back at history and see what has happened and how far have we gone in terms of readiness. Back in 2012, through the UNRED program, technical support, the first national strategy for Indonesia was developed. And this was a moment for the country, of course, to understand the different patterns of deforestation and forest degradation in the country, organize the governance according to the principles of transparency and participation that are required under the UNFCCC, and also start developing the systems to track the information and ensure that there is transparency in monitoring and also measuring for the impact that these policies have in terms of reducing deforestation and forest degradation. And what we see that Indonesia has come so far from 2012, and I would like to congratulate all the representatives of the government for the impressive work that you have done with local communities in terms of empowering them, to conduce their practices in a more sustainable manner, but also in developing the governance structures to allow for participation of the different communities in the decision-making for these policies, as well as enabling the systems to track the emission reductions and the ongoing projects and activities to ensure that there is no double counting, that the emission reductions are real, and that this can be truly verified by independent parties. And this is no easy task, colleagues. This is something that takes a lot of years, a lot of investments, and a lot of work from government officials, coordination across different ministries, and it is indeed a very complex task. It is important to remember that we are talking here about performance-based finance. So performance-based finance encompasses RED Plus results-based payments, which is a way that you pay payments for environmental services, basically. As the government shows that they are reducing deforestation and they measure the carbon of this reduction, they are allowed to seek potential donors or funds like the GCF to pay for these results and acknowledge all the efforts done with the intention that this finance will mobilize and ensure incentives for further action to continue reducing deforestation. And we see that that has happened in Indonesia. So UNDP has worked also beyond UN-RED and beyond the work on the readiness. We were also selected by Indonesia to be their accredited entity to the Green Climate Fund, where Indonesia has received $103 million in results-based payments. And UNDP worked with the government of Indonesia in setting up the Indonesia Environment Fund with the principles and operations that allow the government to respond to the social and environmental safeguards that are required not only for RED Plus results-based payments, but also for carbon markets in the future. So I think that Indonesia is a very important case of a country that has progressed over time consistently from readiness to RED Plus results-based payments, and I'm very happy to see now that they are structuring the policies, the organizations, and the data to allow the country to further benefit from carbon finance and potentially attract very much needed private resources to continue the great work that they are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Leticia. I'm glad to hear about the transparency and the participatory issue. Maybe we can elaborate more about that, how, you know, in the next 5 years, things getting more and more transparent and wider participation can take place. Without further ado, I would like to invite our friend from private sector here, especially the Association of the Concessionaire. I would consider this is a big player in the next RED Plus, RBP, whatever, economic value of carbon with regard to land use and land use change. Pak Purwadi, time is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Prof. Daniel. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me. It's very glad to see you all of to discuss about the future of the climate change can be maintained. I'm Purwadi Supriyanto, Secretary General of the Indonesian Association of Indonesian Forest Concessionaires. Let me give you the brief of the association. We manage around 30 million hectares area under our member. It is around 50% of the total of production forest in Indonesia. So regarding Indonesian FOLU Net Sink 2030, our management in the field will play important role. Why? Because when we are dealing with the issue of the additionality, permanency, and also additionality and baseline, etc. So what kind of the mitigation action implemented by the member or APHI will determine and influence the the achievement of Indonesian FOLU target in 2030. So when we are talking about the carbon governance, Pak Daniel, I think we are dealing with the issue of the high carbon integrity. So in the context of implementation carbon integrity in the field, so we're glad to see that it now open opportunity for our member to get the credit carbon not only from the compliance approach but also from the voluntary based on the presidential regulation number 110. So I like to underline three pillars that it should be addressed, to make sure that carbon governance, especially resulted the high integrity of carbon market, will be ensured in the field. First of all, I think we have to deal with the legality first. Based on the Indonesian regulation, all of the carbon project should be based and comply with the government regulation. It means that first you have to hold the concession license first, then you have to put you have to overlay your management plan with the target map of the Indonesian FOLU Net Sink 2030. Based on FOLU Net Sink, there are almost more than 10 mitigation action that should be implemented in the field, like reducing emission from forest degradation and deforestation, then sustainable forest management, then developing plantation forest, rotation and non-rotation, also maintaining water management and preventing feed from the fire and etc. So you have to overlay this. It means that your management plan should be comply with the government first. This is the first stage that we have to fulfill. The second one, of course, technically we have to meet with the robust carbon accounting, meaning that including dealing with the issue of the additionality, preparing baseline, and also issue the permanency and no double counting. Then it can be implemented in the field if at the beginning you have already done all of the preparation. And the last thing that is very important for us in the context to operate mitigation in the field is how we share the benefit of the carbon generated from the forest management unit by mitigation action. Why I put this as the priorities issue, as we are aware that if we are talking about the mitigation action, actually we cannot only depend on it or hide on it. We still have to think about the adaptation program. Sure, of course, it will relate to how we empower, educate community, and building, the community capacity to make sure that they will get the benefit from all of the mitigation in the field in the context of the forest management unit implementation of carbon governance in the field. That's, I think, the first thing that we have to underline, Pak. Thank you.
Give applause to Pak Purwadi. So for colleagues who do not know how Indonesian forest was managed, so in the past 40 years, more or less, we had 120 million hectares of forest, and the majority of that was what he called production forest. So his association related to the concession was granted a permits to cut down forests of about 30 million hectares back in the decree came out in 1980, 30 million. And now the amount or the size of forest which is under the concession and can be considered as production forest is about the same size. And we can hear just now from Pak Purwadi that there is a shift of paradigm. Instead of cutting them down, the value standing for us as carbon stock, which can be traded, can be generating income and also job for people within which people are alive in this area. So this is quite something that we need to explore further. How can that be done in the next 5 years and beyond? So it was mentioned in the opening speech by Ibu Haruni that there is a new regulation related to economic value of carbon, which is handled by the Ministry of Environment for all sectors, including land sector. So we would like to hear more about how to implement that. In addition to RBP, the NAK and other scheme of financing climate will profile in the future. So Pak Wahyu Marjaka will explain to us how this new scheme will be implemented starting from this year. Pak Wahyu.
Well, thank you very much, Prof. Daniel Mudiar. So, thank you very much to be invited in this very good forum. As we understand that recently we just heard that the new regulation has issued. We call it Presidential Regulation Number 110/2025, concerning the carbon economic value. One of the important issues of this regulation is aimed for strengthening the implementation of carbon trading in the NDC sector and subsector. Of course, it is including the forestry sector. It is hoped that strengthening can be carried out by ensuring that the consolidations and transparency of sector data will be further improved. We have a lot of experience. We have the experience in the REDD Plus that we need to be improved the data integration in the registry system. We understand that to develop new registry system is very important. To strengthen the carbon trading in every sector need to be supported by the registry system. So it means this registry system from the sector, subsector to national registry system and the interconnected to international registry is very important. That we can track all transaction, we can track the budget, the movement of the credit, including forestry sector, is needed to be transparent with a high integrity criteria. So by strengthening the registry system has a consequence. Each sector have to develop their capacity. They need to develop their technology and they need to develop the financial support. This is very important in the future. So that's why starting with the new regulation, we have to prepare the consolidation and the integration, the system data in all sectors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Wahyu. Give a big applause to Pak Wahyu and all the speakers. And we have plenty of time for you, audience, to get further information. I think it was the invitation from Liv John that Indonesia gave a very exemplary moment to other countries in terms of leadership in running forest carbon project. Maybe you have similar kind of challenges and situation that you can clarify and get more information from the audience. Please do so. But before that, I would like to perhaps also trickle the questions and discussion by asking maybe a bit naughty question to you all, guys. I was starting with the pledge from Norway 15 years ago that 1 billion will be available, as to oppose with the recent pledge from Indonesian government, equally a big amount. So from the presentation that Ibu Haruni gave, I think it's almost half of it's already been earned by Indonesia. 490 something million, and the remaining amount is still there. Do you think, Liv John, this, with the experience we had in the past, Indonesia can, make opportunity and make use of this pledge in the future with the developed kind of capacity to do that, since readiness phase until the implementation? And what would you see in terms of possible handicap or barrier that that thing can happen? Thank you.
First of all, let me repeat, it is fantastic to see Indonesia show real leadership and progress in this place. So, with the ambitions raised for the FOLU sector further than before, and reconfirming climate commitments, reconfirming the elements of the FOLU Net Sink, which we heard about now, how it will be rolled out. Sorry about that. And with the commitment to the Tropical Forest Forever facility, the table is set for improving results even further. For yet further results, as we can, if your graphs continue the way they were looking, we see no reason why this shouldn't go develop further, to continue the partnership, the emissions reductions continuing. There will be further results-based payments, all other conditions in place. So, that's our commitment, reflecting your commitment.
Do you think the R3 tool will help to achieve that? And if it is so, how can people be equipped and enhance their capacity to do that?
We truly believe that aiming for the highest integrity standard would make a lot of sense for a country with the kind of capacity that Indonesia has demonstrated. So that would be the right approach in our thinking for Indonesia, and the one that would generate the most significant results.
Would you like to entertain questions from the floor?
For sure.
Any question for Liv John? With regard to Norwegian pledge and tool they provide to achieve what is called high integrity carbon, emission reduction progresses. Questions from Indonesia, Brazil, or I saw there. Lei. Anybody can help her with the microphone, please? Otherwise, you have to come up here, Lei.
Thank you, Pak Daniel, for the opportunity. I would like to ask questions to Liv regarding your pledge on the Norway. You've been investing in Indonesia. Your country has been investing in Indonesia for some money, some funds, especially under the result-based payment. Yeah. So, how do you see the lessons from RBP to ensure that next batch of funding for climate and forest can be more effective as well as flow into the right direction and also targeting the correct and right beneficiaries? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good questions. I think the current basis of the cooperation, the results-based cooperation, already lays an excellent basis for Indonesia expanding into forest carbon markets, because this results-based payment is already based on a forest reference emissions level, having been agreed between the parts. The model is based on the RED decisions, the RED model agreed by the UNFCCC. So, this is the best possible preparations for entering into forest carbon markets at scale. And Indonesia, together with Brazil and DRC, being the forest superpowers, this is the sort of approach that would appear appropriate for Indonesia. And this is now the challenge to just take these experience into forest carbon markets with the private sector and in the voluntary carbon market and further beyond that. And we think our cooperation has been makes an excellent preparation for that.
Thank you, Liv John. You mentioned about superpower. The next one will be Brazil, I guess. Anybody from Brazil would like to ask further questions with regard to the pledge and facilities that Norway provide? Colleagues from Brazil? No? Or from other countries? If not, my next question, which is closely related to first one, is not to you, Leticia, but to Pak Wahyu about the governance of economic value of carbon. So do you see RBP as a challenge, as a competitor in your mix of financing of carbon with regard to the governance of NEK? Any sense of, respond on that? Because you have also the so-called blending financing. So what is the RBP in the context of that?
Yes, thank you very much, Pak Daniel. Yes, at the first time we developed the carbon economic value, actually we have a 4 mechanism: RBP, emission trading, levy, and the other mechanism. So it means the position of each mechanism is similar. So if we think that RBP is a competitive of the other mechanism, it's not like that. So we considering that every mechanism should be complementary or should be supporting each other. For example, in Indonesian experience, RBP, we have already achieved a higher achievement of the performance base. And after that, using the modality, we can develop any structure and a modality for developing the other mechanism that we already done in Indonesia. So it means using the RBP, we can use as a modality. Using it, we can have experience to support development of other mechanism. If we considering the other mechanism also complementary, and we can work in the same situation like this.
Okay, thank you. I understand that the RBP result or carbon credited from the RBP is not sold elsewhere, and it will retire in Indonesia. How do you see this in the next round? If people are interested to buy this credit in the open market like IDX, how the governance of RBP will take place in the future?
Yeah, I think this is challenging to set up the situation that RBP that cannot be transferred to international, for example, for the credit. But the other possibility using VCM, voluntary carbon market, we can have approachment to transfer the credit after get the authorization and the corresponding adjustment. So it means there is a different rule of the RBP and the carbon trading, even in the forestry sector. Thank you.
Do you see the RBP price stay low, or will they be increased in the future?
No, I don't think so. This is still low because we already negotiated with the, for example, the biocarbon fund. Yeah, and the RBP in the FCBF, we got the deal, the price in $5 per ton. But in the biocarbon fund, we already get the higher price, $7. Even just at $2, this is increasing.
Okay. So you know my question is naughty. Eh? Another question from the floor. Again, I think Lee is very keen to see this dollars symbol, right?
Yeah, the topic is close to my heart. Beria Lemona from C4 Ikraf. So what I understand that the FFF, it targets about 125 billion US dollar, right? With 20 billion coming from the public money, it means that there's still 110 billion coming from the private sector investment. So my questions will be to Pak Wahyu, how confident our Indonesian government as one of the future recipients of this TFFF, ensuring that there will be still coming money to our country instead of our investment of 1 billion. Yeah, and then maybe also to leave for the NICFI. What will be the NICFI strategy to ensure that this rest of money also can come and also integrate together to make the visions happening? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, RBP is RBP right now. We run the good manner in the implementation of the RBP. However, Indonesia using the new regulation, we try to align compliance market and voluntary carbon market. This is the opportunity to set up the new condition and ecosystem that we confident the money will come to Indonesia. Exactly, yes.
Leticia, you want to add
I'm
on?
sorry to jump in, but
Yeah, no
I'm
problem.
also very passionate about the topic. It's actually 25 million, it's not 125 million. And the money that is put by the different donors is actually, the money is countries and others who invest on it receive a return on this investment. So it's not a donation from Indonesia that's taken away from investments in their countries. It's actually an investment that can generate more investments for the country as well. So I wanted to just clarify this point. I wanted to also to comment on a point that was made before. I think it was very interesting, the Indonesian strategy for how to do the optimal allocation of the different mitigation outcomes from the forest sector. So I think 1 or 2 years ago, PAC came to us at UNDP and it was like, what would be your technical advice in terms of the different allocations of these different assets, considering the requirements of the different funds and donors, and also the fact that some of it is transferable, others can be used for the NDC. Indonesia's NDCs rely heavily on the land use and forest sector. So if you transfer out, you may be in a position later on that you need to buy ITMOs from another country for a higher price. So this is strategic outlook that countries need to have is something that Indonesia 2 years ago was already thinking about this, concerned about this, and trying to prepare the legislation to ensure that the different types of investments would be going to the targeted areas. And I think one of the initiatives that I was very pleased to see is also the work that Indonesia is doing in terms of restoration of forests in general, but also mangues. Now I forget how to say in English.
Mangroves?
Mangroves. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a huge effort from the government to make sure that these ecosystems are restored, and these are key ecosystems for the planet as a whole, but also the local environment. And this requires substantive investments. And I think it's in restoration where potentially a lot of the private sector projects that are ongoing have a highest potential to drive from, either from the voluntary carbon markets or even Article 6, because those are very costly activities in which the return is not always there because the financial mechanisms are not adapted for this type of investment where it takes a long time and survival rates are not always guaranteed. So I think it's very interesting, and this type of strategic outlook, thinking about what Daniel said in terms of 5 years, the country will need to constantly think about the next steps, move forward, go back, rethink, is this working or not? What would be the best allocation? How are prices of the different assets? And I see in Indonesia and the way that they are organizing the different instruments that they are making sure that there is this flexibility and that strategic guidance is being given to the private sector and other investors with how the country can progress achieving the NDC and bringing prosperity to people on the ground as well.
Liv John, you want to add?
Absolutely. And I think the most fantastic thing about the Tropical Forest Forever facility is that it does address the issue that was somehow and to some extent left behind when we set up RED back in the day. How to pay for standing forests. And there has been some attempts, and there's been some successes, such as in Guyana, to do that, but it hasn't taken off on a massive scale, something that, for instance, Central Africa is very much waiting for, with a lot of standing forest, and I suppose Papua too. So, it does, in a way, it represents the next level, the next step, perhaps RED phase 4, except it's not RED. But, and I think we share your concerns and the opportunities, which was recognized with Indonesia's fantastic investment in TFFF, in that this goes beyond public funding. It makes use of private capital and private investment in a whole new and innovative way, which recognizes the geopolitical situation that ODA is in trouble these days. There are setbacks, and we need to look for new ways and innovative ways of financing development and biodiversity protection. So I think this is something that complements very well the current cooperation on the results-based finance, as well as developing that further into forest carbon markets at various scales. As we have heard, this can be the existing projects will be nested, should be nested. The projects will have to account for their environmental integrity at large, and let's hope that the projects haven't already taken up so much of the carbon quotas or carbon accounting that there will be little left for national accounting. That would be too bad, because that's the experience of some other countries, and so that's why nesting needs to be done carefully so as to ease projects into jurisdictional and national accounting, especially since 5 years to go before 2030, when everything has to be national. That's not too far away. Thank you.
Thank you, Liv John. Before I give the floor, the chance to the floor again, I do not want to ask you, maybe I will ask you later, Leticia, but close to the issue of opportunities, I would like to hear from the Association of Concession Holder, because the title of this session is Unlocking. Unlocking. I heard from time to time that this is not locked anymore. It's open. How do you see this, Borwadi, as players who are holding so much opportunity to see this opportunity with regard to let the forest standing that Liv John was saying earlier? How do you see this?
Yeah, thanks, Prof. I think thanks again, Pak Wahyu, for the opportunity by issuing Presidential Regulation number 110, which is actually giving the flexibility for the concessionaire to choose the methodology, not only in the mandatory but also the voluntary carbon market. Why it is important? Because there are a lot of progress in the world currently, and actually based on the regulation it is open instead of RBP, Pak. And it is giving us the opportunity to generate credit carbon from the concessionaire while remain fulfill the NDC target. I think that is the two messages, the important message. First, we can have a carbon credit to be traded, and the second one, we still have opportunity or still fulfill the NDC target. So that's why instead of the financing issue, as Pak Liv said, it can be generated by voluntary carbon mechanism, because we do believe that it will generate more and higher price than sorry to say, Pak, RBP at the current situation. But of course, we still have a challenge when we are going to adopt the voluntary carbon, as we understand from the coming adoption of the Article 6.4. So I think it will influence and challenges of the voluntary carbon market. But we do believe by, applied the robust methodology and also link with UNFCCC methodology, it can be prepared from the beginning, then we can adjust what the new feature and we can anticipate. For example, correct me if I am wrong, Pak. For the red plus, I think it will be eligible under 6.4 when the seller country has fulfilled at least 4 requirements. And they have already prepared the national plan, monitoring plan, safeguard, and forest reference level instead. So I think it still have a high opportunity for us to adopt the voluntary carbon market as well. We are trying to prepare the adoption of the Article 6.4 in the near future. That's my point. Pak.
So you are aiming higher price.
Yes, sure, Pak. Oh,
Okay.
one more thing. I am really interested about the, what do you call it? The new feature of RBP. I do believe that will be like jurisdictional nested approach, right? Yeah, because honestly, Pak, the 5 years the implementation of RBP, it's not, sorry to say, it's not attract the investment of private sector. So because it's still not clear the benefit that can return to us. So I think with the approach of jurisdictional and nested approach, we can choose whether one of the methodology or the benefit can be attracted from the private sector investment. So we have to going through the detail of the jurisdictional nested, and I do think, believe that Indonesia now is under process to prepare this. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you very much. Before you respond on that, Liv John, you can raise your hand again, but let's give the opportunity for the audience to raise any question or clarification from the panel member here. You are forbiddenly. Any other questions? You still have one? You sure? Okay. It sounds like C4 graph session here, no? Go ahead.
I cannot help asking question. Well, as you know that the TFFF, they are talking about structure of forest, yeah? They use the definition of FAO for eligibility of the funding. Don't you think this is something that become decreasing? I mean, before when we are talking about the payment for ecosystem services, we are talking about payment of performance-based. But now, which is linked to the functions of ecosystem. But now you're coming back to the structure. Don't you think this is something making it left behind? Thank you.
Yes, sure. I think the involvement Indonesia and then TFFF is very important, and I do believe that a lot of discussion will be going through in detail how this pledge can be implemented in the supporter of the country. And we discussed yesterday a lot of possibility how the finance from the pledge can be true drawn in the operation, not only for the carbon trading, also how to conserve and how to get the payment of environmental services. So I do believe that it's not only dealing with the carbon trading or carbon credit. It will be a large issue that we can address by this pledge, I do believe. Thank you.
Please, John.
Thank you so much. And just to make sure, while we're discussing projects and national and whatever is in between nesting, right? Just like I highlighted in my introduction, introduction. One of the key features of our current cooperation is to respect Indonesia's way of setting up their own systems and the way of distributing funds and investing in how to go further in the future. Much the same way as we have worked with Brazil over the years. And this will obviously continue, and this is very well reflected in the regulation we have discussed here, that all of these efforts have to be supported in their own ways. Meaning that there is a place for the existing projects, there is a place for mangrove restoration, there is a place for peat restoration. All of these systems, whether they fit into a forest carbon market model or not. And then just one final point, when you compare, if one compares results-based payments with carbon market prices, that's not really fair, I think, because our results-based partnership has been a dry run. It has been a rehearsal, so to speak, for the forest carbon market, which we expect to raise prices much beyond $5, of course. So that shouldn't be the comparison, but the main thing here is Indonesia, as it is already demonstrating so well, it is using the full panoply of approaches to reduce emissions and restock forests and increase value of forests. So that's in all of these dimensions, Indonesia is an example for others. And the main point is, again, Indonesia chooses its own systems and its own approaches, and the world will listen.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Liv John, for the clarification. I think we are comfortable with that, I guess. Leticia, one thing which is always forgotten here is, as development agency, how this business of carbon trading, result-based payment, be better performed when the indigenous people and local community are involved. Do you have any advice or perhaps way forward kind of action to do involving them, please?
Thank you so much for this question, Daniel, because for UNDP, as you mentioned, we are a development agency. So when carbon markets came as a topic, the key question that my boss asked me was, why would we engage on this? No, like there is the UN Environment Agency, there is the UN Climate Agency, why the development agency needs to engage on it? And for us, also learning from REDD+, we realized that these activities, in particular in the forest sector, are connected. So when we talk at UNDP about integrity of carbon markets, different from many players that talk about environmental integrity, meaning a solid carbon accounting, no double counting and all of that, for UNDP, social integrity stands on the same level as environmental integrity. So we are talking here about guaranteeing that the local communities, indigenous peoples participate not only in the benefits that are shared, but also in the design of the policies and interventions that will impact their territories. We are talking about the generation of jobs for local communities. We are talking about making sure the investments of the whole supply chain in carbon markets, which is not only the credits that are traded, right? You have project developers, you have the verifiers, you have the auditors, you have the rating agencies. Most of this come from the global north. And that should not be the case. It should be coming from the global south, because a lot of the challenges that we face in validation and verification process is actually experts that were trained in temperate forests and now come to tropical forests and sometimes don't fully understand the dynamics of that ecosystem. And connecting the global ambition with local action is what is key for this. And one thing that Indonesia has done that to us was very interesting, and we worked with Indonesia in this process through the Indonesia Environment Fund, is making sure that most of the resource-based payments that they receive through the Green Climate Fund goes to the people on the ground. So out of $103 million that were received, 93 went down to the local level. And not only the direct resources that these communities are receiving, but also more than 1,000 capacity building workshops and efforts to make sure that everyone is just not listening, but that they fully understand what's being discussed and they can participate, ask questions, make sure that their interests are respected, making sure that the customary rights of these communities are recognized. There is no REDD+ without rights. Rights to the local communities to manage their own territories. I think Indonesia has done a great work in incorporating the social and environmental safeguards into the procedures of the Indonesia Environment Fund. And this is a good that was generated for the country that goes above and beyond this 103 million. Because now donors that come in will know that this is institutionalized through the operations of the fund and that the disbursement of future resources they receive will abide with the same criteria. And the good news here is that when we worked with them on the social and environmental safeguards, since UNDP also has its own safeguards, we made sure that it's encompassing. So if Indonesia chooses to go through our trees, at least on the social and environmental safeguards, I can tell you that they are ready to go. So this is the good news. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the bonus you gave about that. Benefits will be enjoyed by the local community. I would like to encourage our, especially Brazilian friend here, what is been mentioned by our colleague from UNDP, who is Brazilian. Please do so. Feel more relaxed to ask these very questions about. I think it's common issue also in Indonesia. Please do so if you have any questions or concern about how the local community can get the access to that benefits.
Pode perguntar em português que eu posso traduzir também, se vocês
It can
quiserem.
be in Portuguese too.
That's
yeah?
what I said.
All right. Go ahead. Please. No? Yes. Okay, good. This is better.
Thank you. Hello, Letícia. You have just talked about that. Vou falar em português. Que você acabou de falar que para fazer o desenvolvimento no mercado de carbono, a maioria dos desenvolvedores eles são da parte do norte em vez da parte do sul. Eu gostaria de saber quais são os mecanismos, que formas que seriam interessantes de fazer para que essas pessoas das partes do sul poderiam desenvolver esses projetos e essas questões para que seja de uma forma assim, para que desenvolvesse essas regiões do sul.
So his question is about the comment that I made about the global north being where most of the experts in carbon markets are, and the fact that most of the resources are not only in the purchase of the credits, but also investments in the supply chain. And he's asking, how can we make sure that more expertise is developed in the global south to change this current situation? I'm gonna reply in English so everyone can understand, but it's basically making sure that the capacity is built on the ground. There is no other way around this. A good example, just so we have a reference here, the Clean Development Mechanism, which was what anticipated the Article 6, is a clear example of how this capacity can be developed. It was a mechanism that mainly China, India, and Brazil benefited from because they had already some installed capacity in terms of engineers, forest engineers, but other areas. And these people were trained to develop carbon projects and do this type of verification. So nowadays, you do have a lot of verifiers from India. You don't have any verifiers in Brazil as far as I know, but you have a lot of project developers in Brazil. And in China, you have both. And the same needs to be done in other countries. And I think it's currently being done. When we worked with Indonesia, this process of channeling the resources to the ground also requires an auditor. It's not a carbon auditor, but it's an auditor of performance. And one of the requirements from the government was, I want an auditor that is from Indonesia. having the opportunity to engage in markets is how you build capacity. You can do a lot of courses and training, but it is through experience that this is learned. So we need to start building these capacities, but also creating incentives for these companies to operate in this market as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leticia. So I think I've got the signal that our time is over. Just to conclude what we can take home, the message from the distinguished panel here is, number one, well, RBP is a kind of experience that Indonesia and perhaps also other countries can learn how we can benefit from protecting forests to reduce emission and also get the wealth of that process for the local community. And the new area or arena under the TFFF would be a kind of stimulus to go beyond RBP and certainly to achieve the main objective of TFFF is to let the forest standing, and we can get incentive from there beyond what we have been doing through RBP processes. And lastly, for Indonesian context, I think RBP is only one of the financing mechanism, and there are many more, including the trading and within this context of land sector. So with that, I would like to end this session. And again, let's give a round of applause to our panel here. Thank you.